Chapter 17, Oligopoly. Our objective in this chapter is to answer the following questions. What outcomes are possible under oligopoly? Why is it difficult for oligopoly firms to cooperate? How are antitrust laws used to foster competition? Let's talk about marketing concentration by defining concentration ratio. That's the percentage of total output in the market supplied by the four largest firms. The higher the concentration ratio, the less competition. This chapter focuses on oligopoly, a market structure with high concentration ratios. Concentration ratios in selected United States industries. Video games, concentration ratio 100%. Tennis balls 100%. Credit cards 99%. Batteries 94%. Soft drinks 94%. Web search engines 92%. Breakfast cereals 92%. Cigarettes 89%. Greeting cards 88%. Beer 85%. Cell phone service 82%. Autos 79%. Oligopoly is defined as the market structure in which only a few sellers offer similar or identical products. Strategic behavior in an oligopoly. A firm's decision about price and output can affect other firms and cause them to react. The firm will consider these reactions when making their decisions. So there's some kind of mutual interdependence. Game theory is the study of how people behave in strategic situations. Let's look at an example, cell phone duopoly in a small town. A small town has 140 residents. The good is the cell phone service with unlimited anytime minutes and free phone. Small towns demand schedule. The two firms are AT&T and Verizon. That is a duopoly. An oligopoly with only two firms. That is a duopoly. Each firm's cost, fixed cost is zero, marginal cost is zero, so we have a schedule of price and quantity. So there is the revenue, which is price times quantity. There is the cost column, and there is the profit column. Simply, revenue minus cost is the profit. And competitive outcome would be where price equals marginal cost, as we have seen, and price equals marginal cost at where the price is 10 and quantity sold is 120. And the profit is zero. Remember, under competitive firm, profit is driven towards zero. In the case of a monopoly, the outcome would be price charge would be $40, output would be 60, and profit would be 1,800. Those are the two extreme market models: zero profit under competition, and a profit of $1,800 under monopoly. One possible duopoly outcome would be collusion, an agreement among firms in a market about quantities to produce or price to charge. AT&T and Verizon could agree to each produce half of the monopoly profit For each farm, output would be 30, the price would be 40, and the profit would be 900. The other possibility would be to form a cartel, which is a group of farms acting in unison. Duopoly outcome with collusion, each farm agrees to produce 30 and earn a profit of 900. Number one, if AT&T reneges on the agreement and produce 40 instead of 30, what happens to the market price? AT&T's profit? Number two, is it in AT&T's interest to renege on the agreement? Number three, if both farms renege and produce output equal to 40, determine each farm's profit. So let's look at these outcomes. If both farms stick to the agreement, each farm earning a profit of 900. Let's look at number one. If AT&T reneges on agreement and produces 40, the market quantity sold would be 70, the price would be 35, and AT&T would make a profit of 40 times 35 of minus 10, of course, and that would be $1,000. So AT&T would make more money if it reneges on the agreement. Number two, AT&T's profit are now higher if it reneges. Number three, Verizon will conclude the same. Both firms will renege, each producing 40. Market quantity will be 80. The price would be 30. Each farm's profit would be 800. So both farms would be better off if both stick to the cartel agreement. But each farm has an incentive to renege on the agreement. What's the lesson here? It is difficult for oligopoly farms to form cartels and honor their agreements. So it's a self-interest here that sabotages their original agreement. Let's look at oligopoly equilibrium. If each farm produces 40, market quantity sold is 80, the price is 30, each farm's profit is 800. Is it in AT&T's interest to increase its output further to 50? Is it in Verizon's interest to increase its output to 50? If each produces 40, then each farm will earn a profit of 800. If AT&T increases output to 50, market quantity will be 90, the price will be $25. AT&T's profit will be 750. AT&T's profits are higher at output 40 than at output 50. The same is true for Verizon. Equilibrium for an oligopoly. Let's look at Nash equilibrium. What is Nash equilibrium? Economic actors interacting with one another each choose their best strategy, given the strategy that all the other actors have chosen. In the case of duopoly example, a duopoly example has a Nash equilibrium. Given that Verizon produces 40 output equal to 40, AT&T's best move is to produce 40. Given that AT&T produces 40, Verizon's best move is to produce 40. When firms in an oligopoly individually choose production to maximize profit, they produce output greater than monopoly output, but less than competitive output. The price is less than monopoly profit price, but greater than competitive price, which is price equal to marginal cost. The output and price effects. Increasing output has two effects on a farm's profit. Output effect: if price is greater than marginal cost, increasing output raises profits. What about price effects? Raising output increases market quantity, which reduces price and reduces profits on all units sold. The size of the oligopoly. As the number of sellers in an oligopoly increases, the price effect becomes smaller. The oligopoly looks more and more like a competitive market. Price approaches marginal cost. The market quantity approaches the socially efficient quantity. Another benefit of international trade in this case. Let's see what the experts say. Behavior in many complex and seemingly intractable strategic settings can be understood more clearly by working out what each party in the game will choose to do if they realize that the other parties will be solving the same problem. This insight has helped us understand behavior as diverse as military conflicts, price setting by competing farms, and penalty kicking in soccer. What do economists say? 100% agree. The economics of cooperation. The prisoner's dilemma. What is a prisoner's dilemma? It's a particular game between two captured prisoners, and it illustrates why cooperation is difficult to maintain even when it is mutually beneficial. What's the dominant strategy? The strategy that is best for a player in a game, regardless of the strategies chosen by other players. So, prisoner's dilemma example. The police have caught Barney and Clyde, two suspected bank robbers, but only have enough evidence to imprison each for 1 year. The police question each in separate rooms, offer each the following deal. If you confess and implicate your partner, you go free. If you do not confess, but your partner implicates you, you get 20 years in prison. If you both confess, each gets 8 years in prison. This information is represented in this diagram, where we can see that this quadrant corner here, if Clyde confesses and Barney confesses, then the Barney gets 8 years, Clyde gets 8 years. If Barney remains silent, doesn't confess, but Clyde confesses, then Clyde goes free, Barney gets 20 years. The opposite is in this quadrant. In this corner, though, Barney gets 1 year, Clyde gets 1 year because they both remain silent. The police doesn't have enough evidence. So clearly, this corner is in their best interest. But why is the dominant strategy not in this corner? Confessing is the dominant strategy for both players. Confessing, which means they're in this corner, they both confess and they both get 8 years, even though it is in their best interest to remain silent and get 1 year each. But then that's what we call the Nash equilibrium. The dominant strategy is the Nash equilibrium. So the outcome, Bonnie and Clyde both confess, each gets 8 years in prison. Both would have been better off if they remained silent. But even if Bonnie and Clyde had agreed before being caught to remain silent, the logic of self-interest takes over and leads them to confess. When oligopolies form a cartel, in hopes of reaching the monopoly outcome, they become players in a prisoner's dilemma. Our earlier duopoly example of AT&T and Verizon are duopolies in Smalltown. The cartel outcomes maximizes profit. Each firm agrees to serve a queue equal to 30 customers. And this is an example of Verizon, AT&T. If they agree on 30 customers, their profit is in this rectangle, $900 each. But each firm's dominant strategy, that means the dominant strategy is to renege on the agreement and produce 40, and this is the most likely outcome. This is the dominant strategy. The players, this is a fair wars active learning. The players are Delta Airlines and United Airlines. The choice, cut price by 50% or leave fares alone. If both airlines cut fares, each airline's profit is $400. If neither airline cuts fares, each airline's profit will be $600. If only one airline cuts its fare, its profit will be $800 million. The other airline's profit will be $200 million. Draw the payoffs metric and find the Nash equilibrium. So here is the matrix and the Delta Airline and United Airlines. What is the dominant strategy? The Nash equilibrium is that both airlines will cut fares, even though it will be in their best interest not to cut fares. Ad wars, other examples of prisoner's dilemma. Two firms spend millions on TV ads to steal business from each other. Each firm's ad cancels out the effects of the other, and both firms' profit fall by the cost of advertising. Another Nash equilibrium. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC. Member countries try to act like a cartel, agree to limit oil production to boost prices and profits. But what happens? But agreements sometimes break down and individual countries renege, self-interest takes over, and again, the dominant strategy is not what they really wanted. Arms race between military superpowers. Each country would be better off if both disarm, get rid of all these nuclear weapons, but each has a dominant strategy to arm. What about common resources? All would be better off if everyone conserved common resources, but self-interest, each person's dominant strategy is to overuse the common resources. The tragedy of the commons we read earlier on. What about welfare of society? Non-cooperative oligopoly equilibrium, is that good for society? May be bad for oligopolists, prevent them from achieving monopoly profits. May be bad for a society. Examples are arms race games, common resources, or the tragedy of the commons. May be good for society if quantity and price are closer to optimal level. Another example of negative campaign ads. Election with two candidates, R and D. If R runs a negative ad attacking D, 3,000 fewer voters will vote for D. 1,000 of those people will vote for R R, the rest will abstain from voting. If D runs a negative ad attacking R, R loses 3,000 votes. D gains 1,000 and 2,000 abstention. R and D agreed to refrain from running attack ads. Will each of them stick to the agreement? This would be their matrix. What's the dominant strategy? Each candidate's dominant strategy is to run the attack. Okay? They will choose to run the attack. Negative campaign ads. Another example of campaign ads, the Nash equilibrium. Both candidates run attack ads. Effect on election outcome? None. And they have spent a lot of money on the ads. Each side's ads cancel out the effect of the other side's ads. Effects on society is negative. Lower voter turnout, higher apathy about politics, less voter scrutiny of elected officials' actions. Why people sometimes cooperate. When the game is repeated many times, cooperation may be possible. Two strategies may lead to cooperation. If your rival reneges in one round, you renege in all subsequent rounds. It's sort of tit for tat. Whatever your rival does in one round, whether renege or cooperate, you do in the following round. Governments can sometimes improve market outcomes. So what are the public policy towards oligopolies? Policymakers try to induce firms in an oligopoly to compete rather than cooperate, move the allocation of resources closer to social optimum. Antitrust laws are in place. Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 elevated agreements among oligopolists from an unenforceable contract to a criminal conspiracy. Clayton Act 1914 further strengthened the antitrust laws used to prevent mergers, used to prevent oligopolists from colluding. Controversies over antitrust policy. Most people agree that price-fixing agreements among competitors should be illegal. Some economists are concerned that policymakers go too far when using antitrust laws to stifle business practices that are not necessarily harmful and may have legitimate objectives. We consider three such practices. Number one, resale price maintenance, fair trade. The manufacturer imposes lower limits on price retailers can charge, often opposed because it appears to reduce competition at the retail level. Yet, any market power the manufacturer has is at the wholesale level. No gains from restricting competition at the retail level. Legitimate objective, preventing discount retailers from free riding on the services provided by full service retailers. Predatory pricing. A firm cuts price to prevent entry or drive competitor out of the market so that it can charge monopoly prices later. It's illegal under antitrust laws. Difficult when a price cut is predatory and when it is competitive and beneficial to consumers. Many economists doubt that predatory pricing is a rational strategy. It involves selling at a loss, costly for the farm, and it can backfire. 3. Tying. A manufacturer bundles two products together and sells them for one price. What do critics say? Tying gives firms more market power by connecting weak products to strong ones. Others, tying cannot change market power. Buyers are not willing to pay more for two goods together than for the goods separately. Firms may use tying for price discrimination, sometimes increases economic efficiency. Summary. Oligopolies can maximize profit if they form a cartel and act like a monopolist. Yet, self-interest leads each oligopolist to a higher quantity and lower price than under the monopoly outcome. The larger the number of farms, the closer will be the quantity and price to the levels that would prevail under competition. Prisoner's dilemma shows that self-interest can prevent people from cooperating even when cooperation is in their mutual interest. The logic of the prisoner's dilemma applies in many situations. Policymakers use the antitrust laws to prevent oligopolies from engaging in anti-competitive behavior, such as price fixing. But the application of these laws is sometimes controversial.